The collective threat. The emergency alert interrupted Grand Arbiter Nexcora during a routine review of adaptation protocols. Her chamber's holographic displays flared red as reports flooded in from the galaxy's outer rim. Multiple systems gone dark, her aide reported, crystal appendages trembling. Something's consuming entire worlds, Arbiter. The hive mind, they've returned. Nexcora's form pulsed with dread. The collective, as most species called them, had been the stuff of legends. A vast consciousness that absorbed other species into itself, converting entire populations into drone workers for its ever-expanding biomass. How many systems lost? 17 in the past standard week. Their adaptation rate is unprecedented. They're absorbing our technology, improving it, turning it against us. Nexcora accessed the tactical displays. The collective's advance was methodical, unstoppable. Concordat standardized defenses proved useless against an enemy that could analyze, adapt, and improve upon any technology it encountered. Contact Earth, she ordered. We need their chaos now more than ever. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the Combined Defense Council, her expression grim as she reviewed the collective's advance. Representatives from 200 species packed the chamber, their former political differences forgotten in the face of extinction. Standard Concordat weapons are ineffective, she reported. The collective adapts too quickly to any fixed tactical approach. Traditional military doctrine is worse than useless, it's predictable. Then we're doomed, the Voltari representative's cybernetic eyes dimmed. If even our most advanced technologies can't stop them. I didn't say that, Sarah smiled. Humanity has been preparing for something like this since we first reached the stars. Admiral Martinez. James Martinez, now Supreme Commander of the Allied Defense Forces, stepped forward. Operation Hydra is ready. We've been developing it in secret since the quarantine days, specifically for an enemy that adapts to standard tactics. The tactical display shifted, showing thousands of small ships scattered throughout human and allied space. Each vessel was different, using varying combinations of technologies and tactical approaches. The basic principle is simple, Sarah explained. Don't give them a pattern to adapt to. Every ship, every weapon, every tactic is unique. When they adapt to one approach, we hit them with something completely different. Controlled chaos, Martinez added. On a galactic scale. The first engagement with the collective proved their theory. A fleet of human-designed ships, each using different technological combinations, engaged a collective world ship near the frontier territories. The collective drones adapted quickly to the first wave of attacks, but found themselves unable to establish effective countermeasures against an enemy that never used the same approach twice. Traditional energy weapons were followed by gravity bombs, followed by quantum field disruptors, followed by weapons that even the human engineers weren't entirely sure how they worked. They can't adapt to what we don't understand ourselves, Sarah explained to the Allied command. So we built weapons based on barely theoretical physics. Even we don't know exactly how some of them function. The collective reeled, but didn't fall. It began absorbing the chaotic technologies, trying to turn them against their creators. But humanity had anticipated this too. Release the second wave, Martinez ordered. Show them why you don't give humans time to prepare for war. The second wave wasn't ships at all. It was information. Viruses designed by hybrid teams of AI systems and human programmers, each operating on different logical frameworks. They invaded the collective's neural networks, introducing chaos into its unified consciousness. The vast hive mind, accustomed to perfect order and synchronization, found itself fragmented by conflicting data streams. Drone armies received contradictory commands. World ships turned against each other as different segments of the collective consciousness reached different tactical conclusions. Fascinating, Sarah remarked, watching the tactical displays aboard the flagship Prometheus. They're so focused on adaptation and improvement that they never considered the power of deliberate imperfection. Martinez nodded. Perfect systems are predictable. Imperfect systems. He gestured to the display, where collective forces were falling into disarray, are harder to counter. But the collective wasn't finished. As its frontline forces crumbled, it withdrew into its core systems, reorganizing, analyzing, preparing for a final confrontation. They're learning, Sarah warned the Allied command. Not just adapting technologically, but strategically. They're beginning to understand the power of chaos. Then we show them the true meaning of human innovation, Martinez declared. Initiate Project Phoenix. The final battle for the galaxy took place in the space around a dying star. The collective had gathered its remaining forces, a vast armada of biomechanical ships surrounding a cluster of world ships. They had adapted to chaos, incorporated randomness into their tactics, prepared for anything humanity could throw at them. Or so they thought. All ships, execute Phoenix protocols, Martinez commanded. Show them what humanity does best. Across the battlefield, human ships began to change. Not in the predictable way of collective adaptation, but in wild, seemingly impossible ways. Vessels split apart and recombined. Weapons morphed into new forms mid-shot. Entire battle groups shifted tactics not just between engagements, but during them. What is this? The collective's first direct communication echoed across all frequencies. This defies physical laws. No, Sarah replied to the vast consciousness. It defies your understanding of physical laws. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our tactics. It's our ability to imagine the impossible, and then make it real. The Phoenix ships were humanity's ultimate achievement, vessels built using technology that merged concordat precision with human imagination, creating ships that could rewrite their own physical structure on the fly. They weren't just adaptable, they were transformation itself given form. The collective, faced with an enemy that could change faster than it could adapt, began to fracture. Its unified consciousness, already damaged by the information warfare, couldn't maintain cohesion against an opponent that refused to follow any rules, even the rules of physics as the collective understood them. In the aftermath, as the Allied fleets secured former collective space, Grand Arbiter Nexcora met with Sarah and Martinez aboard the Prometheus. You saved us all, she admitted. But at what cost? The galaxy will never be the same after seeing what you've created. That's rather the point, Sarah smiled. The galaxy needs chaos to evolve. Perfect order, perfect adaptation, they're dead ends. True growth comes from embracing the impossible and making it reality. And now? Nexcora asked. What happens to galactic civilization after this? Martinez gestured to the viewport, where ships from 100 species worked together, each bringing their own unique approaches to the cleanup effort. Now we build something new, he said. Not perfect, not standardized, but stronger because of its imperfections. A civilization that embraces both order and chaos, tradition and innovation. Together, Sarah added. Because that's the final lesson humanity had to teach the galaxy. True strength doesn't come from perfection or adaptation. It comes from diversity, from chaos and order working in harmony. As the Prometheus cruised through the battlefield, its quantum sensors detected something extraordinary, traces of collective consciousness, not destroyed but transformed. The chaos introduced into its perfect system hadn't killed it, it had evolved it into something new, something that might one day return not as a threat, but as yet another voice in the galaxy's growing chorus of diversity. The age of standardization was truly over. The era of infinite possibility had begun. And humanity, the species that had ridden nuclear explosions to the stars, that had turned mining tools into weapons and imperfection into strength, stood ready to guide the galaxy into its chaotic, beautiful future. The impossible had become real. And that was just the beginning. Diplomatic chaos. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Concordat Central Authority hadn't seen such tumult in 10,000 years. Representatives from over 500 species packed the tiered chambers, their voices creating a storm of competing sounds. At the center of it all stood Grand Arbiter Nex Cora, her crystalline form pulsing with barely contained frustration. "Order," she commanded, her harmonics cutting through the chaos. "We will have order." The chamber gradually quieted, though the tension remained palpable. On the main speaking platform, the first human diplomatic delegation to ever address the full Concordat waited patiently. Dr. Sarah Chen stood alongside Ambassador Marcus Rodriguez, their presence both a victory and a source of profound discomfort for many Assembly members. "The Assembly recognizes the Human Diplomatic Corps," Nex Cora announced, her tone carefully neutral. "You may present your case." Ambassador Rodriguez stepped forward, his dark eyes scanning the chamber. "Honorable representatives of the Galactic Concordat, we come before you not as supplicants, but as equals. The recent defeat of the Drachnid fleet demonstrates that humanity has earned its place among the stars. Through violations of every technological protocol we've established." The Voltari representative's cybernetic implants flashed angry red. "Your innovations threaten the very foundation of galactic civilization." "Do they?" Sarah stepped forward, activating a holographic display that filled the chamber. "Let's examine those foundations." The display showed economic and technological growth charts from the frontier worlds, those systems that had already begun adopting human methodologies. In the past 6 months, worlds that have embraced adaptive innovation have seen an average 300% increase in productivity. Their defense capabilities have quadrupled. Quality of life indices have shown marked improvement. At what cost? The Meridian Counselor's tentacles writhed. Chaos. Unpredictability. The breakdown of established orders. Progress is often chaotic, Rodriguez countered. But consider this, while the Concordat spent millennia perfecting standardized technologies, how many problems remained unsolved because they didn't fit your protocols? In her private chamber, Grand Arbiter Nex Cora reviewed the latest reports with growing concern. The frontier worlds were already forming new alliances, independent of Concordat oversight. Several major trading houses had begun funding human-inspired research and development. A gentle chime announced a visitor. "Enter," she commanded. Fleet Commander Yurix stepped in, his scales dulled with exhaustion. "Grand Arbiter, you requested my presence?" "Yes, Commander. I need your honest assessment. Could we contain humanity by force if necessary?" Yurix's head crest flattened. "With respect, Grand Arbiter, no. Their adaptation rate is unprecedented. Every tactic we develop, they counter within days. Every technology we deploy, they analyze and improve upon. And now they have allies," Nex Cora finished. "The frontier worlds look to them for inspiration. More than that," Yurix added. "They're teaching others to think like them. To innovate. To adapt." He paused. "The galaxy is changing, Grand Arbiter. We can either change with it, or become irrelevant," she concluded. Like so many empires before us. The debates raged for weeks. Species that had coexisted under Concordat law for thousands of years found themselves taking opposing sides. The traditionalists demanded humanity be contained or expelled from galactic society. The progressives argued for embracing change and innovation. Through it all, the human delegation maintained their composure, organizing demonstrations of their technologies, holding informal meetings with interested parties, and slowly building a coalition of support. "They're rather good at this," Nex Cora observed to her advisors as she watched Sarah Chen expertly mediate a dispute between two traditionally hostile species. "They call it shuttle diplomacy," one advisor noted. "Moving between parties, finding common ground, building consensus, it's as unorthodox as their technology. But effective," another added. "Like everything they do." The crisis point came when the Drachnid survivors, led by a captured Krozthul, were brought before the assembly to testify. The former warlord's mandibles clicked nervously as he recounted the battle. "They didn't just defeat us," he explained. "They rendered our entire tactical doctrine obsolete. Every advantage we thought we had, gone. Every weakness we tried to exploit, turned against us. They don't just adapt, they force their opponents to adapt or die." The chamber erupted again, but this time the tone was different. Fear mixed with fascination, concern with curiosity. Ambassador Rodriguez seized the moment. "The galaxy stands at a crossroads. The old way, rigid, standardized, resistant to change, has reached its limits. We offer a new path, controlled innovation, adaptive progress, and cooperative development. And if we refuse," someone called out. "Then you'll be left behind," Sarah replied simply. "The frontier worlds have already chosen their path. The trading houses are following. Change is coming, whether the Concordat accepts it or not." The final vote, when it came, was closer than anyone expected. But in the end, pragmatism won out over tradition. The Concordat would accept humanity as full members, with special dispensation to continue their technological development outside standard protocols. In return, humanity would share their methodologies, helping establish new guidelines for controlled innovation and adaptive development. "It won't be easy," Sarah remarked to Rodriguez as they left the chamber. "Change never is." "No," he agreed, "but it's necessary." The galaxy had grown stagnant under pure standardization. Sometimes you need a little chaos to spark evolution. Behind them, the assembly continued to buzz with activity as species began forming new alliances, trading houses adjusted their strategies, and the great machinery of galactic civilization began to shift in a new direction. Grand Arbiter Nexcora watched it all from her elevated position, her crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights. "Send word to all Concordat worlds," she instructed her staff. "The age of pure standardization is over. The era of adaptive progress has begun." As the message went out across the galaxy, countless species held their breath, wondering what this new age would bring. But on Earth, in the frontier worlds, and in research centers throughout known space, humans and their allies were already hard at work, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly the point. The Pirate's Lesson. Warlord Krosthul of the Drachnid Dominion stood on his command deck, biosensors pulsing with anticipation as he watched the quarantine line ahead. His fleet of 300 ships represented the largest pirate force assembled in decades. "Status of the Concordat fleet," he growled, mandibles clicking. "Spread thin, Lord. Their quarantine formation leaves significant gaps." His tactical officer's chitinous fingers danced across neural interfaces. "They cannot reposition quickly enough to counter our numbers." Krosthul's compound eyes flickered with amusement. The Concordat's obsession with containing the humans had created a perfect opportunity. Their mighty fleet, stretched into a sphere around a single star system, was vulnerable. "And the humans?" he asked, almost as an afterthought. "Still limited to their system, Lord. Our intelligence suggests they've been completely isolated. Their technologies remain primitive by Concordat standards." "Excellent." Krosthul's mandibles spread in what passed for a smile among his kind. "Begin the attack. Target the Concordat ships first. Once their line breaks, we'll deal with the humans." Aboard the Eternal Vigilance, Fleet Commander Yurix watched in horror as the massive pirate fleet materialized from FTL. His quarantine line, designed to contain humans, not repel a major assault, was hopelessly positioned. "Sound General Quarters. All ships, battle formations." But even as he gave the order, he knew it was too late. The Drachnid fleet's position would allow them to pick off his scattered forces piecemeal. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission, from Earth." "The humans? Now." Yurix's scales flickered in irritation. "What do they want?" The officer's crystalline appendages trembled slightly. They're offering assistance. Yurix almost laughed. What could these primitives possibly? His thoughts were interrupted by massive energy signatures appearing throughout the solar system. Hundreds of them. Thousands. By the first light, someone whispered. What are those? Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of the EDF Prometheus, Earth's newest flagship, watching the tactical display with quiet confidence. Around him, crew members coordinated with AI systems, directing the largest deployment of human forces in history. Operation Hornet's Nest is ready, Admiral, Sarah Chen reported from her station. All units show green. Martinez nodded. Send the word to all ships, execute. Across the solar system, what appeared to be asteroid mining stations, communications relays, and orbital debris suddenly transformed. Panels shifted, weapons emerged, and engines flared to life. The quarantine had forced humanity to get creative with hiding their military buildup. Every piece of civilian infrastructure they'd constructed over the past year had been designed for dual purpose. First wave, engage, Martinez ordered. Let's show them what we've been working on. Krosthul's first indication that something was wrong came when seemingly harmless debris near his fleet began moving. Before he could react, thousands of small objects accelerated toward his ships. Evasive action, he roared, but the objects weren't attacking, they were attaching themselves to his ship's hulls. My lord, his tactical officer screamed. They're quantum-locked to our hull. We can't. The devices activated simultaneously, creating localized fields that prevented FTL travel. The Drachnid fleet, built for hit-and-run tactics, was suddenly trapped in normal space. Then the real attack began. Human ships emerged from hidden docks in asteroids and beneath gas giant atmospheres. But they weren't the crude vessels the pirates remembered. These ships bristled with technologies that somehow merged Concordat principles with human ingenuity. Impossible, Krosthul whispered as the tactical display showed his ships being systematically dismantled. The humans had taken the Concordat's elegant energy weapons and merged them with their own crude but effective targeting systems. They'd combined quantum field technology with their primitive nuclear devices to create weapons that bypassed traditional shields. But worst of all were the drones. Swarms of them, each hardly bigger than a shuttle, moving with both AI precision and human unpredictability. They slipped through shield gaps, targeted vulnerable systems, and coordinated their attacks with an efficiency that bordered on art. My lord, his second-in-command reported, mandibles quivering, we're losing ships too fast to track. These humans, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered. Of course not, Krosthul realized too late. The Concordat tried to contain them, but all they did was give them time to perfect their methods. Fleet Commander Yurix watched in stunned silence as the human forces systematically dismantled the greatest pirate fleet seen in generations. Their tactics defied conventional military doctrine, their weapons ignored expected limitations, and their coordination. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the humans are transmitting tactical data to our ships. They're showing us how to adjust our weapons to match their attack patterns. Yurix hesitated only a moment before making a decision that would change the galaxy. Implement their modifications. All ships, coordinate with human tactical networks. The result was devastating. Concordat energy weapons, recalibrated using human targeting algorithms, cut through the pirates' remaining defenses. Human drones herded enemy ships into killing zones where Concordat cruisers waited. Within hours, the great Drachnid fleet was reduced to scattered survivors. In the battle's aftermath, Yurix found himself aboard the Prometheus, face to face with Admiral Martinez and Dr. Chen. Why did you help us? He asked. After we tried to contain you. Because that's what humans do, Sarah replied. We adapt, we innovate, and when necessary, we cooperate. The quarantine forced us to perfect our technologies in secret, yes. But we never wanted to be your enemies. But your methods, they don't follow any established protocols. They're effective? Martinez suggested. The galaxy's changing, Commander. The Concordat can either change with it, or become obsolete, Yurix finished, understanding finally dawning. The quarantine declaration, it was our greatest mistake, wasn't it? It was certainly a teaching moment, Sarah smiled. For everyone involved. As Yurix prepared to return to his ship, he paused. The Council will want to know how you developed all this technology under quarantine. Tell them the truth, Martinez said. Tell them that trying to contain humanity is like trying to contain evolution itself. It's not just futile, it's counterproductive. Watching the Concordat ships depart, Sarah turned to Martinez. They'll lift the quarantine now. Yes, he agreed. But more importantly, they'll never look at primitive species the same way again. And the galaxy? Martinez gestured to the tactical display, where dozens of ships from frontier world systems were already approaching, hoping to learn from the human victory. The galaxy just learned that standardization isn't always the answer. Change is coming, whether the Concordat is ready or not. Sarah nodded, watching the stars. The quarantine had intended to contain humanity's chaos. Instead, it had concentrated it, refined it, and now it was about to be unleashed across the galaxy. The real revolution was just beginning. First Contact's folly. High Commander Zextal of the Galactic Concordat's First Contact Division stood before the massive observation window of the Eternal Light, his iridescent scales reflecting the distant stars. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he studied the holographic data streaming before him. Most peculiar, he muttered, his translator converting the clicks and whistles of his native tongue into standard galactic common. These readings cannot be correct. The sensor officer, a tall Viridian with crystalline appendages, approached with another data slate. Sir, we've confirmed the readings. The species has achieved faster-than-light travel using controlled nuclear explosions. Zextal's head crest flared in disbelief. Preposterous. No civilized species would be so reckless. Are you suggesting they're detonating nuclear devices behind their ships to propel themselves through space? Project Orion, they call it, sir. And that's just one of their methods. They've also developed something they term an Alcubierre drive, highly inefficient by our standards, but functional. The High Commander chittered in amusement. How characteristically primitive. To think they've actually managed to reach the stars with such crude methods. He turned to his second-in-command, Subcommander Yurix. I suppose we should make contact before they accidentally destroy themselves. The bridge crew shared knowing looks. The Concordat had encountered hundreds of species over its 50,000 years of existence, and the protocol was always the same: evaluate, contact, and guide them into the greater galactic community. Primitive species were given basic technology to help them advance, in exchange for resources and adherence to Concordat law. Prepare the standard first contact package, Zextal ordered. Let's show these humans how real spacefaring civilizations operate. Little did they know that this routine first contact was about to shatter every preconception they held about technological advancement. Dr. Sarah Chin stood before the United Earth Defense Council, her holographic presentation showing the massive alien vessel that had appeared at the edge of the solar system. Their technology is unlike anything we've seen before. The energy readings suggest they're using some form of quantum vacuum manipulation for propulsion. General Martinez leaned forward. Are they hostile? Unknown, but they're broadcasting what appears to be a first contact protocol. Very structured, very formal. They're requesting a meeting at the Mars colony. The council chamber erupted in murmurs. Humanity had only established the Mars colony 15 years ago, and it was still a relatively small operation. However, its isolation made it perfect for a first contact scenario. What do we know about them? Council President Adebayo asked. They call themselves the Galactic Concordat. Based on their transmissions, they're a collection of species that govern this sector of the galaxy. Their technology is, well, it's elegant. Efficient. Everything we're not. Sarah smiled. They probably think we're savages. Martinez grinned. Good. Let them underestimate us. Dr. Chen, you'll lead the first contact team. Choose your people carefully. And make sure Project Phoenix is ready, just in case. The meeting chamber in Mars Colony 1 had been hastily converted for the historic occasion. The human delegation sat on one side of the table, while the alien representatives arranged themselves opposite. High Commander Zextal's translator worked perfectly, converting their words into each species' native language. We welcome you to the Galactic Concordat, Zextal began, his voice resonating with practiced diplomacy. We have reviewed your technological development and are prepared to offer assistance in advancing your civilization to acceptable standards. Dr. Chen smiled politely. That's very generous. What exactly would this assistance entail? We would provide you with proper FTL drive technology to replace your current methods. Basic quantum computing systems, standardized weapon protocols. Weapon protocols? Martinez interrupted. Yes. The Concordat maintains strict guidelines on acceptable military technology. Your current weapons are primitive and unpredictable. They would need to be replaced with standardized energy-based systems. Sarah and Martinez exchanged glances. And what would the Concordat want in return? Sarah asked. Merely compliance with Concordat law and access to your system's resources. It's a standard arrangement that has helped hundreds of species advance beyond their primitive beginnings. The human delegation maintained their diplomatic smiles, but there was a glint in their eyes that Zextal couldn't quite interpret. We'll need time to consider your offer, Sarah replied. In the meantime, would you be interested in a tour of our facilities? The tour was proceeding exactly as Zextal had expected. The humans' technology was crude, their methods inefficient. Their ships looked like they'd been cobbled together from spare parts, their computer systems were laughably basic, and their weapons were based on primitive chemical reactions. Then the alarms went off. Pirates! A human officer burst into the observation deck. 3 Drachnid warships just dropped out of FTL near Deimos. Zextal's scales paled. Drachnids? Here. Impossible. We need to return to our ship immediately. We can't risk. With all due respect, High Commander, Sarah interrupted, there's no time. Please, remain here where it's safe. We'll handle this. Before Zextal could protest, screens around the observation deck came to life, showing multiple views of space around Mars. The Drachnid ships, massive, organic-looking vessels bristling with weapons, were moving into attack positions. This is a disaster, Zextal muttered. Those are elite pirate vessels. Without proper Concordat weapons, your ships won't stand a chance. Sarah smiled. Watch. 3 human vessels moved to intercept the Drachnids. They were smaller, cruder, and by all apparent measures, hopelessly outmatched. Zextal prepared himself to witness a massacre. What happened next would be forever burned into his memory. The human ships didn't engage in proper combat formations. Instead, they scattered, moving in erratic patterns that seemed to confuse the Drachnid's targeting systems. Then, without warning, one of the human ships launched what appeared to be mining drones. What are they doing? Yurix whispered. Mining equipment against military vessels. The drones swarmed toward the lead Drachnid ship. The pirates' energy weapons swatted many from space, but some got through, attaching themselves to the organic hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the drones detonated. The explosions weren't large, but they were precisely targeted. The Drachnid ship's outer layer began to dissolve. The drones had been carrying highly concentrated acid, specifically designed to eat through organic matter. Impossible. Zextal's translator barely kept up with his shocked clicks. That's barbaric. But the humans weren't finished. As the lead ship floundered, another human vessel launched what looked like a modified communications array. It pulsed, sending out waves of electromagnetic energy that somehow interfered with the neural links between the organic ships and their crews. The third human ship then launched its payload, hundreds of tiny, mirror-like objects that scattered across space. When the Drachnids fired their energy weapons, the mirrors redirected the beams back at their sources, causing devastating feedback loops in their weapon systems. In less than 15 minutes, all three Drachnid ships were disabled, their crews in disarray, their weapons systems offline. How? Zextal finally managed to ask. Those weapons, they're not proper military technology. Sarah turned to him, her expression serious. High Commander, humanity learned long ago that proper doesn't always mean effective. We take what we have and we make it work. Yes, our technology might seem primitive to you, but we've learned to use it in ways you never imagined. But the Concordat protocols. With all due respect, High Commander, Martinez interjected, we're not interested in replacing our technology with standardized Concordat systems. We're happy to join your community, to trade and share knowledge, but we'll do it our way. Zextal looked out at the disabled Drachnid ships, then back at the humans. For the first time in his long career, he began to wonder if perhaps the Concordat's standardized approach to civilization wasn't as superior as he'd always believed. I will need to report this to the Concordat Council, he said finally. They will want to know about everything. Of course, Sarah replied with a smile. Just make sure you tell them one thing, High Commander. What's that? Tell them that humanity is ready to join the galactic community, but we're joining as equals, not as primitives to be uplifted. We may do things differently, but as you've just seen, different isn't always wrong. As Zextal left Mars that day, he couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to change forever. The humans, with their impossible combinations of crude technology and brilliant innovation, their willingness to think beyond established protocols, and their ability to turn seemingly primitive tools into devastating weapons, were unlike anything the Concordat had ever encountered. And this was only first contact. Looking at the blue-green planet growing smaller in his view screen, Zextal made a mental note: never underestimate species that achieve spaceflight by riding nuclear explosions. They're clearly crazy enough to try anything, and skilled enough to make it work. The galaxy would never be the same. The Quarantine Declaration. Grand Arbiter Nexcora's chambers in the Concordat Central Authority buzzed with agitated energy as the Emergency Council session convened. Representatives from 30 major species filled the circular chamber, their voices a cacophony of worried discussions. Order. Nexcora's harmonics cut through the noise, her crystalline form pulsing with authority. We are here to address the human situation. High Commander Zextal, present your findings. Zextal stepped into the center of the chamber, his scales dulled from weeks of stress. The holographic display activated, showing footage from the Mars incident. Distinguished council members, what you're about to see defies all conventional wisdom about technological advancement. He played the recording of the human ships defeating the Drachnid pirates. Gasps and murmurs filled the chamber. A Meridian counselor's tentacles writhed in distress. They weaponized mining equipment. That's barbaric. Barbaric but effective, Zextal responded. And that's not all. In the weeks since first contact, we've documented dozens of similar innovations. They're taking our basic trade technologies and modifying them in ways we never considered. The holographic display showed more footage, human ships using modified waste disposal units as improvised missile launchers, atmospheric processors converted into ship-disabling electromagnetic pulse generators, and communication arrays repurposed as weapon targeting systems. This is unacceptable. The Voltari representative's cybernetic eyes flashed red. They're corrupting standardized technology. It goes against everything the Concordat stands for. Nexcora raised an appendage for silence. What of the trade restrictions we implemented? Ineffective, Zextal admitted. The humans are creative in circumventing them. They're already trading with the frontier worlds, exchanging their innovations for raw materials. Several minor species have begun adopting their methodologies. And the results? Nexcora pressed. Productivity in the frontier worlds has increased by 47%. Their defense capabilities have nearly doubled. But Zextal's head crest drooped, none of it follows Concordat protocols. The chamber erupted in argument again. Centuries of standardization, of careful technological development, were being undermined by a single species that refused to follow the rules. In her office aboard Titan Station, Dr. Sarah Chen reviewed the latest intelligence reports with growing concern. The Concordat's communications were becoming increasingly hostile, and their trade restrictions were tightening. They're going to try to contain us, aren't they? James Martinez, now Admiral of the Earth Defense Fleet, stood by the window overlooking Saturn's rings. Can you blame them? Sarah brought up a holographic display showing the spread of human influence. We're changing too many things too quickly. The frontier worlds are abandoning Concordat standards in favor of our primitive but effective solutions. And now we've got half the galaxy's outcasts and entrepreneurs showing up in our system, looking to trade. Martinez chuckled. Who knew our junkyard engineering would be so popular? A gentle chime interrupted them. Dr. Admiral, the AI assistant announced, we're detecting a massive energy signature at the system's edge. Concordat ships. Lots of them. The holographic display shifted, showing hundreds of vessels moving into position around the solar system. A transmission cut through all frequencies. Attention human authorities. By order of the Galactic Concordat Council, your system is now under quarantine. All non-human vessels are to depart immediately. Any attempt to break quarantine will be met with force. Sarah and Martinez exchanged looks. Well, Martinez said, I guess we knew this was coming. Options? They've forgotten something important about quarantines, Sarah replied, a slight smile playing on her lips. They work both ways. They're not just containing us. They're giving us time to innovate without interference. 6 months into the quarantine, the Concordat's containment fleet was growing frustrated. Despite their best efforts, small ships kept slipping through their blockade, using methods that defied conventional detection. On the bridge of his flagship, Fleet Commander Yurix, promoted after Zextal's retirement, watched in disbelief as another smuggler vanished from sensors. How are they doing it? He demanded. His sensor officer, a young Viridian, hesitated. Sir, they're using modified food preservation units to mask their energy signatures. Something about using the cooling systems too. Enough. Yurix cut him off. I don't want to hear about another human innovation. Just find them. But the smuggling was just the beginning. The humans had turned the quarantine into an opportunity, using their isolation to develop technologies that increasingly ignored Concordat conventions. They began launching what they called von Neumann probes, self-replicating machines that used local materials to build copies of themselves, spreading human influence far beyond the quarantine zone. The Concordat would destroy one, only to find 10 more had already launched in different directions. Trading stations began reporting strange new devices appearing in frontier markets. Human-inspired technology, they called it. Crude but effective solutions that solved problems the Concordat had deemed too complex or not worth solving. 1 year into the quarantine, Sarah stood before the United Earth Defense Council again, but this time her presentation was very different. The quarantine has actually accelerated our development, she explained. Without having to comply with Concordat standards, we've been free to pursue our own path. Our ships are faster, our weapons more effective, and our influence, well. The display showed the spread of human-inspired technology throughout the galaxy. Red dots indicated trading posts known to carry human innovations, green showed systems actively adopting human methodologies, and blue marked potential allies who'd reached out in secret. The Concordat wanted to contain us because we didn't fit their model of how civilization should develop, Sarah continued. But they failed to understand something fundamental about humanity. We thrive under pressure, Martinez added. And we're really good at finding holes in other people's rules. President Adebayo studied the display thoughtfully. And our new friends in the frontier worlds? Very eager to continue trading, Sarah replied. The quarantine forced them to choose between Concordat standards and human innovation. Many are choosing us. The Concordat's attempt to contain us is actually breaking their hold on the frontier systems. And what happens when they realize their quarantine is backfiring? Before anyone could answer, the chamber's AI sparked to life. Priority alert. Massive energy spike at quarantine perimeter. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL, signatures match Drachnid vessels. A lot of them. The room fell silent. The pirates had returned, but this time they weren't facing 3 human ships near Mars. They were facing a quarantine fleet stretched thin trying to contain an entire solar system. Well, Martinez said grimly, I guess we're about to find out if all our quarantine time innovations work as well as we hope. Sarah's expression hardened. Should we contact the Concordat fleet? Warn them? No, President Adebayo decided. Let's show them exactly why trying to contain humanity was their biggest mistake. Admiral Martinez, deploy the fleet. Let's give the galaxy a demonstration they'll never forget. As the alert klaxons sounded throughout the solar system, Sarah couldn't help but smile. The Concordat had tried to bottle up humanity's chaos, to prevent it from spreading through their ordered galaxy. Instead, they'd created a pressure cooker of innovation, forcing humanity to become even more creative, more resourceful, and more determined. When the dust settled from this battle, the galaxy would never be the same. The quarantine was about to be broken, not by humans trying to escape, but by the very forces the Concordat had failed to contain in the first place. And humanity was more than ready to show the galaxy exactly what they'd been working on during their containment. The real question was, would the Concordat survive the demonstration?